The dog didn't bark at the locked door. He lay down in front of it like something inside was still breathing. Caleb's hand froze on the keypad as a wet, uneven breath seeped through the steel. Too human to ignore, too wrong to explain. Rex pressed closer, trembling, but didn't move away. The red light blinked once, then stopped, and something inside shifted. "What do you think is behind that door?" The clock on the wall clicked over to 2:13 a.m., with a dull plastic sound that didn't belong in the kind of silence that had settled over the trailer. Caleb Turner didn't look up right away. He was sitting at the small metal table bolted to the floor, a mug of cold coffee in his hand. The surface gone still and black hours ago. The overhead bulb flickered every few seconds, humming like it was struggling to stay alive. The wind pushed against the thin aluminum walls, making them breathe in slow, uneven pulses. Across from him, Rex lay on the floor, head resting on his paws, but not asleep. The dog's ears were angled forward, listening. Caleb set the mug down without drinking. His fingers lingered on the rim a second too long, as if he'd forgotten what he meant to do with it. Then he reached for the envelope. It had been there for hours. He didn't remember hearing it arrive. No knock, no engine outside, no footsteps on gravel. Just there, propped against the door when he went to check the lock before bed. Heavy paper, cream-colored. No return address he recognized. He turned it over again now, running his thumb along the edge. The seal had already been broken. He'd done that earlier. Slow. Careful. Not the way he used to check packages back when things weren't just packages. Rex shifted slightly on the floor. Not restless. Alert. Caleb glanced at him. "You hear something?" he asked quietly. Rex didn't move, just kept staring toward the door. Caleb followed the line of his gaze for a second, then looked back down. The letter inside was folded once. Thick stock, expensive, legal. He already knew that much. He unfolded it again and read the first line for what had to be the fourth time. "Mr. Caleb Turner, you are hereby notified that you have been named the sole beneficiary of the estate belonging to Eleanor Whitaker." He stopped there, not because he didn't understand it, because he did, and it didn't make sense. He leaned back slightly in the chair, the metal legs scraping faintly against the floor. The sound was too sharp in the quiet, and his shoulders tightened before he could stop it. Rex's head lifted a fraction. Caleb exhaled slowly through his nose. "Just me," he muttered. He looked back at the page. Located in the Appalachian region of West Virginia, the property included a residential structure and surrounding acreage. Its estimated value would be disclosed upon completion of the residency condition. Residency condition, that part had stuck. He read further. "To claim full ownership, you are required to reside on the property for a period of 30 consecutive days. During this time, you may not vacate the grounds for longer than 3 consecutive hours. Violation of this condition will result in immediate forfeiture of the estate." Caleb's jaw shifted slightly. 30 days. He glanced around the trailer. The cracked countertop, the rusted sink, the single window with the taped corner that rattled every time the wind picked up. The boots by the door still dusted with dried mud from a job that paid just enough to keep the lights on. $47 in his checking account. He didn't need to check. He knew the number. He always knew the numbers. His eyes moved back to the page. "You will not bring additional occupants onto the property. A caretaker will be present on site for maintenance purposes. You are advised to comply with all restrictions as outlined." His thumb pressed harder into the paper. Caretaker. Of course. There was a caretaker. There was always someone already there. He kept reading. Final condition. "Under no circumstances are you to access or attempt entry into the east wing basement of the residence." Caleb's eyes stopped. Not moved on. Stopped. He read the line again. Slower. "The east wing basement." Something in his chest shifted. Not sharp, not sudden, but heavy. Familiar in a way he didn't like. Restrictions like that didn't exist for no reason. He let the paper lower slightly, resting it against the table. Rex stood up. No sound, just movement. The dog's body went from still to ready in a single smooth motion, muscles tightening under his coat. His head turned toward the door again, ears forward, eyes locked. Caleb didn't look at him this time. He was already looking at the door. The trailer creaked softly as the wind pressed against it, then clink a small metallic sound. Outside, Caleb didn't move right away. His breathing slowed, his shoulders lowered a fraction, everything else sharpened, and he set the paper down carefully, fingertips releasing it without a sound. Rex took one step forward, placing himself between Caleb and the door. Low stance, waiting. Caleb's hand moved, smooth, controlled, toward the side of the table where his jacket hung. He didn't grab it, just touched the edge, listening, counting the seconds in his head. 1, 2, 3. No second sound, no footsteps, no engine, just the wind again. He stood slowly, chair barely making a whisper against the floor. His weight shifted forward onto the balls of his feet, without thinking. Rex moved with him, always did. Caleb took 2 steps toward the door, eyes fixed on the handle. The metal latch sat still, reflecting the dim yellow light. He stopped just short of reaching for it. He waited. 5 seconds, 10, nothing, but his hand finally closed around the handle. Cold metal. He turned it slowly. The door opened with a soft, uneven creak. Darkness outside, the kind that swallowed shapes instead of revealing them. The gravel lot stretched out, empty. No headlights, no movement, just the outline of the old fence and the black line of trees beyond. Wind moved through them, low and steady. Caleb stepped out halfway, scanning left, then right. Nothing. Rex moved past him, silent, nose low, tracing the ground just outside the door. Caleb's eyes dropped to the spot where the envelope had been earlier, empty now. He frowned slightly. Rex stopped, his head lifted, and for just a second, barely a second, he let out a low, almost inaudible sound. Not a bark, not a growl, something in between. Caleb felt it more than heard it, and his gaze followed Rex's out past the edge of the gravel into the trees. The darkness didn't move, but it didn't feel empty anymore. Caleb stepped back inside, closed the door, locked it. He stood there for a moment, hands still on the latch, eyes fixed ahead. Then he turned. The letter lay on the table where he'd left it, waiting. Rex came back in, positioning himself at Caleb's side again, but not lying down this time. Still alert, Caleb walked back to the table and picked up the paper once more. 30 days. 1 house. 1 rule he wasn't supposed to break. He stared at the line about the basement again. Then slowly, he folded the letter, set it down, and said almost under his breath, "Yeah." Rex looked up at him. Caleb's eyes didn't leave the paper. "We're going." The words settled into the small trailer like something already decided. Rex didn't move for a second. Then his tail gave a slow single thump against the floor once. Not excitement. Acknowledgement. Caleb folded the letter again, tighter this time, and slid it into the inside pocket of his jacket. By sunrise, the trailer looked emptier than it had the night before. There wasn't much to pack. A duffel bag, 2 changes of clothes, a worn field jacket, a flashlight with fresh batteries, a small lockbox with documents he hadn't opened in years. The pistol went last, checked, cleared, then loaded again with quiet efficiency. Rex watched every movement. Caleb didn't talk while he packed. He moved through it the same way he used to prep before deployment. Methodical, no wasted motion, no second guesses once something was done. Outside, the sky was pale gray, stretching wide over the flat Montana land. By the time the engine turned over, the sun hadn't fully cleared the horizon yet. The truck coughed once, then settled into a rough idle. Caleb adjusted the rearview mirror without really looking at himself. Rex jumped into the passenger seat, turned once, and sat facing forward. "Long drive," Caleb said. Rex's ears flicked. They pulled out onto the empty road, gravel crunching under the tires before fading into the hum of worn asphalt. For the first few hours, nothing changed. Same sky, same open land, same long straight road cutting through it. Caleb didn't turn on the radio. He never did. The silence in the cab wasn't uncomfortable. It was controlled. He drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting near his thigh, fingers loose, but ready. His eyes moved constantly. Not fast, not nervous, just aware. Mirrors, road, horizon, back again. Rex lay down after a while, but his head stayed up, chin resting just above the dashboard line, watching. By midday, the landscape began to shift. The land rose slowly, almost without noticing at first. Flat fields gave way to hills. Hills thickened into tree lines. The sky narrowed as branches reached higher and closer over the road. Cell service dropped from 3 bars to 1, then to none. Caleb noticed the moment it disappeared. His thumb brushed the phone screen once, confirming it. Then he set it back down in the console without a word. The road curved now, tighter, less forgiving. No other cars, no houses, no signs, just forest. Rex shifted in his seat. Not much, just enough. Caleb's eyes flicked toward him. "What is it?" Rex didn't look at him. His gaze was fixed ahead, ears forward, body still. Caleb followed his line of sight. The road stretched empty in front of them, winding between tall pines that blocked out most of the afternoon light. Shadows moved across the asphalt as the branches swayed overhead. Nothing there, but something had changed. Caleb felt it. Not in a clear way, just different. His grip on the wheel tightened a fraction. They drove another 20 minutes before the GPS gave up entirely. The screen froze, then blinked, then went blank. Caleb let out a short breath through his nose. Figures. He reached into his jacket and pulled out the printed directions that had come with the letter. Old school, turn by turn. He scanned the next line. Left at the split. Dirt road. He slowed as the asphalt narrowed even further, then split into 2 paths, barely marked by a leaning wooden post. No sign, no names, just 2 roads. Rex let out a low sound in his throat. Caleb didn't hesitate. He turned left. The tires hit dirt, and the entire truck shifted under him. The suspension groaned as the road dropped unevenly into the trees. Dust kicked up behind them, hanging in the air longer than it should have. The path narrowed almost immediately. Branches brushed the sides of the truck, scraping softly against metal. The light dimmed further, the trees pressing closer together until the sky was barely visible through them. Caleb leaned forward slightly, eyes scanning. This wasn't a road people used, not recently. No tire tracks he could trust, no fresh marks. Just old impressions, half-eaten by time and weather. Rex was sitting upright now, not lying, not relaxed. His body leaned forward just enough to signal attention without panic. Caleb noticed and slowed. The truck rolled forward at a crawl. The forest felt thick, not just physically. Sound didn't carry the same way here. The engine noise seemed swallowed by the trees. The wind barely moved through the trees. It reminded him of something. A patrol route. Afghanistan. A stretch of terrain where everything had gone too quiet just before contact. His jaw shifted. "Not the same," he muttered. Rex's ear flicked at his voice, but he didn't look away from the road. They rounded a final bend, and the trees finally broke. The clearing opened up suddenly, like a breath being released. Caleb eased off the gas. The truck rolled forward slowly onto a wide stretch of packed dirt and dead grass. And there it was, the mansion. It stood at the far end of the clearing, dark against the pale sky. Too big, too still. 4 stories of weathered wood and stone, the structure rising up out of the ground like it had been placed there and forgotten. The windows were tall and narrow, some of them cracked, others reflecting nothing but gray light. The roofline sagged slightly at the edges. The front porch stretched wide, supported by thick columns wrapped in dead vines that hadn't been cut back in years. No movement, no lights, no sound. Caleb brought the truck to a stop. The engine idled for a few seconds longer than necessary. Then he shut it off. Silence dropped over the clearing. Heavy. Rex didn't move. He was staring at the house now. Not barking, not growling, just locked on. Caleb followed his gaze. Something about the place pressed against him. Not fear, not yet, but the same feeling he got when walking into a structure that hadn't been cleared. Unknown variables, too many blind spots. He opened the door. The hinges creaked slightly. His boots hit the ground, gravel crunching underfoot. Rex jumped down beside him, landing soft, controlled. They stood there for a moment, neither moving forward. Caleb scanned the perimeter first. Tree line, windows, roof, door, no movement, no sound, no sign of anyone, but the feeling didn't go away. Rex took a step forward, then stopped. A low, quiet growl built in his chest. Not loud, not aggressive. Warning. Caleb's eyes narrowed slightly. Yeah, he said under his breath. Yeah, I feel it too. He reached back into the truck, grabbed the duffel, and slung it over his shoulder. Then, without rushing, but without hesitating either, he started walking toward the house. Rex stayed half a step ahead of him, between him and the door. Rex stopped 3 steps short of the porch, not hesitating, blocking. His body angled slightly across Caleb's path, just enough that Caleb had to slow if he wanted to pass. The dog's head stayed low, ears forward, eyes fixed on the dark entrance ahead. Caleb didn't try to move around him. He let the moment hold. Wind moved through the trees behind them, but up here, near the house, the air felt still, like it didn't belong to the same place as the forest. Caleb shifted his weight subtly, scanning again. Front windows empty. Porch, aged wood, uneven boards, door closed, but no movement. He took 1 step forward. Rex didn't move. Another step. Still nothing. Then the front door opened. No warning, no sound before it, just the slow, inward swing of old wood, hinges groaning low and deliberate. Rex's growl deepened instantly. Caleb's shoulders dropped a fraction, not relaxed, but ready. A man stepped out onto the porch. Early 60s, maybe. Hard to tell exactly. His posture was straight, but there was a stiffness to it, like it had been practiced over time instead of earned. He wore dark work pants and a faded jacket, the kind that had seen years of use, but had been kept just clean enough to pass inspection. His hands were empty. That was the first thing Caleb noticed. The second was his eyes. Pale. Too pale. They didn't move much. Didn't flick between Caleb and the dog. He didn't scan the area like a man used to living out here should. They just held locked on Caleb, unblinking. "You're late," the man said. His voice was low, flat, not unfriendly, but not welcoming either. The kind of voice that didn't waste words because it didn't care to. Caleb stopped at the base of the porch. "Road doesn't look like it's used much," he replied. The man gave a small nod. "Not by most." Silence settled between them. Rex didn't stop growling. The man's gaze dropped to the dog. For the first time, something shifted. Not emotion. Calculation. "He always like that?" the man asked. Caleb didn't look down. "Only when something's off." The man's eyes lifted back to Caleb. They held there for a beat longer than normal conversation required. "I'm Earl Whitaker," he said. "Caretaker." He didn't step forward, didn't offer a hand, just stood there on the porch like he'd been waiting in that exact spot for a long time. Caleb adjusted the strap of his duffel slightly. "Caleb Turner. I know who you are." Another pause. Wind moved again behind them, but the porch remained still. Earl reached into his jacket and pulled out a ring of keys. Old metal, heavy, the kind that didn't belong to anything built recently. He walked down the steps slowly, each foot placed carefully, deliberately, no wasted motion, no hesitation. Rex's growl sharpened. Caleb felt it through the air more than heard it. Earl stopped a few feet away. Close enough, not too close. He extended the keys. Caleb didn't take them right away. He watched the man's hands first. No tremor, no tension, just steady, too steady. But finally, Caleb reached out and took the ring. Their fingers didn't touch, not by accident. Earl had angled his hand just enough to avoid it. Caleb noticed. "Everything you need is inside," Earl said. "Kitchen stocked, water runs, power holds most days. Storms come through, lines go down." His tone didn't change, didn't soften, didn't explain. Rex shifted, stepping slightly forward, placing himself half a step in front of Caleb again. Earl's eyes flicked to him once more, longer this time, then back to Caleb. "There's one rule," Earl said. Caleb didn't respond. Earl tilted his head slightly toward the side of the house. "East wing," he said. "Basement access is down that corridor." A pause. "You don't go there." No emphasis, no threat, just stated. Caleb's grip tightened slightly around the keys. "What's down there?" Earl didn't answer right away. His eyes held Caleb's for a second then. "Nothing you need." Caleb didn't blink. That usually means something. Earl's expression didn't change. Usually, he agreed. Silence again. Longer this time, the kind that stretched just enough to feel intentional. Caleb shifted his stance slightly, adjusting his angle, subtle, but enough to keep both Earl and the house in his peripheral. Old habits, Earl noticed. His gaze dropped briefly to Caleb's feet, then back up. You military? He asked. Caleb didn't answer immediately. Used to be. Earl nodded once. Figures. Another beat. Then Earl stepped back, not turning his back, just creating space. I don't come in unless I have to, he said. Grounds are my responsibility. The house is yours. Caleb glanced past him toward the open door. Dark inside. No lights. You live on the property? Half-mile east, Earl said. Cottage by the tree line. Caleb nodded once. Earl's eyes lingered on him. Then, for your own sake, Earl added, you follow the rules. There it was. Not a warning. Not quite, but close enough. Rex let out a sharper growl. Earl didn't react, didn't step back, didn't acknowledge it, just stood there, watching. Caleb finally shifted forward, moving past him toward the porch steps. Rex stayed tight to his side. They climbed the steps slowly, the wood creaking under their weight. At the top, Caleb paused just inside the doorway. He turned slightly, looking back over his shoulder. Earl was still standing where he'd been. Same posture, same stillness, same eyes, watching, unblinking. Caleb held the gaze for a second, then stepped inside. The air changed immediately. Thicker, older. The smell hit first. Dust, wood, something metallic almost, but not strong enough to place. Rex stopped at the threshold. He didn't want to come in. Caleb noticed. He didn't push him, just waited. A second passed, then two. Rex stepped forward. Reluctantly, the floorboards creaked under their weight as they moved into the foyer. The door behind them began to close, slow on its own. Caleb turned just in time to catch the final inch of movement. The latch clicked, soft, definite. He stood still for a moment, listening. Nothing, no footsteps outside. No engine, no sound of Earl leaving. Caleb moved toward the nearest window and looked out. The clearing stretched empty. The truck sat where he'd left it, but Earl was gone. No movement, no direction of travel. Just gone. Caleb's eyes narrowed slightly. He stepped back from the window. Rex stood in the center of the foyer now, body rigid, head low, eyes tracking something Caleb couldn't see. Not toward the door, not toward the windows, toward the hallway. Deep inside the house, Caleb followed his gaze. The corridor stretched long and narrow, shadows pooling at the far end where the light didn't reach. Still silent, waiting. Rex didn't growl this time. He just stood there and didn't move. Caleb adjusted his grip on the keys. All right, he said quietly. He stepped forward into the house. The floor answered him immediately. A low creak stretched thin across the boards. Like the sound had been waiting for weight again. Caleb didn't stop. He let his eyes adjust first. The foyer opened up around him. High ceiling, wide staircase directly ahead. The kind of structure built to impress people who no longer came here. Dust clung to the railings. Faded portraits lined the walls, their faces half swallowed by shadow. Rex stayed close. Too close. His shoulder brushed Caleb's leg as he moved. Something he hadn't done since Kabul. Tight streets, bad angles, nowhere safe to stand still. Caleb noticed, didn't comment. His gaze moved left. Dining room, long table. Chairs pushed in, perfectly aligned, no dust disturbed. Right. A sitting room, curtains drawn, light bleeding through the fabric in thin gray lines. Straight ahead, a staircase, and beyond it, a hallway long, narrow, dark at the far end. Caleb's breathing slowed. He adjusted his stance slightly, angling his body without thinking, keeping open sight lines, minimizing exposure. His eyes tracked corners, door frames, shadows that didn't quite match the rest of the room. Clear left, he murmured under his breath. Rex's ears twitched. Caleb moved forward. One step, pause. Listen. Nothing. Another step. The air felt off. Not stale, not exactly. Just wrong in a way that didn't have a clean word for it. Like the house had been sealed too long, and whatever lived inside it had settled into the walls themselves. They reached the base of the staircase. Caleb didn't go up. Not yet. He turned instead, angling toward the hallway. Rex stopped. Just stopped. His body locked again, head lowering slightly, eyes fixed down the corridor. No growl. That was worse. Caleb glanced at him. "What is it?" Rex didn't look away. Caleb followed his gaze. The hallway stretched out, the wood floor darker there, like the light didn't reach as far. Doors lined each side, closed all of them. At the far end, the space bent slightly out of view. Something about the perspective felt compressed, like the distance wasn't what it should be. Caleb exhaled slowly, then stepped forward. The temperature shifted almost immediately, cooler, not by much, but enough. He felt it through the fabric of his jacket. Rex moved with him this time, but slower. Each step deliberate, weight placed carefully, like the ground itself wasn't fully trusted. Caleb reached the first door on the left. He didn't open it. Just checked the handle. Locked. Second door. Same. Third. Unlocked. He paused, listened. Nothing. He turned the handle slowly and pushed the door open. The room inside was small, probably a study once. A desk against the wall. Bookshelves lining one side. Papers scattered across the surface undisturbed. No footprints, no signs of recent use. Caleb stepped inside halfway, sweeping the space with his eyes. Corners, ceiling, floor clear. He stepped back out and closed the door behind him. Rex hadn't moved from the hallway, still watching the far end. Caleb's gaze returned there again. The deeper he looked, the more the shadows seemed to settle into shapes that didn't quite hold. He moved forward again, step by step. The air grew colder, not dramatically, just steadily. By the time they reached the midpoint of the hall, Caleb could see his breath faintly in the air. That wasn't right. Not for this time of year. No. Not for a house with power. He stopped, listened again. The silence here was different from the foyer, thicker, like it pressed back. Rex shifted. A soft sound escaped him. Low, tight. Caleb's hand dropped instinctively toward his side. Empty. He hadn't drawn the weapon. Didn't need to. Not yet. He kept moving. The hallway narrowed slightly toward the end, where the light thinned into something gray and uneven. Then there it was. A faint line in the wall. A seam. Caleb slowed. His eyes traced it. Not a natural break. A doorway different from the others set deeper into the wall. Older wood around it and colder. He could feel it now. A drop in temperature that didn't match the rest of the house. Rex stopped again. This time he growled low, sustained. Caleb didn't reach for the handle. Not immediately. He stood there, letting the space settle, listening. The house didn't move, didn't shift. But something inside it felt like it was. He leaned slightly, bringing his ear closer to the door without touching it. Silence. Then a faint sound so soft it almost wasn't there. A distant drag like something heavy shifting across a surface far below. Caleb's jaw tightened. Not wind, not pipes. Too deliberate, too measured. Rex's growl deepened. Caleb stepped back. He didn't open the door. Not yet. He turned instead, scanning the rest of the hallway again, committing the layout to memory. Entries, angles, distance to the main room, exit points, old habits. Always old habits. Not now, he said quietly. Rex's ears flicked. Caleb stepped away from the door. The temperature rose slightly with each step back, but by the time they reached the foyer again, the air felt almost normal. Almost. Caleb moved toward the kitchen next. He needed light, structure, something that followed rules. The kitchen was at the back of the house, bigger than he expected. Modern appliances fitted awkwardly into old cabinetry. Stainless steel surfaces that looked newer than the rest of the place. Clean. Too clean. The fridge hummed softly. Caleb opened it. Food inside. Fresh. Recently stocked. He didn't touch anything. He closed it again. His eyes moved across the counters. Everything in place, nothing out of line. But it didn't feel lived in. It felt maintained. Like someone had been keeping it ready. not using it. Rex moved past him slowly, nose low, tracing along the edge of the floor. Then he stopped right in the center of the kitchen, his head tilting slightly. He scratched once at the floor, paused, then scratched again. Caleb turned, watched. Rex wasn't digging. Not yet, just marking the spot. Caleb stepped closer. The wood beneath Rex's paws looked the same as the rest, but the sound when Rex shifted his weight was different, hollow. Caleb crouched and placed his hand flat against the floor. Cold. He tapped it lightly. The tone came back dull. Then he shifted a few inches to the left and tapped again. Solid. He stilled. Rex's eyes were on him now, waiting. Caleb sat back slightly on his heels. Didn't move further. Didn't open anything. Just marked it. Same way he used to mark something on patrol. Come back later when the timing was right. He stood. Rex stayed there for another second, then followed. Caleb walked back toward the foyer, the house stretching around him in long, quiet lines behind him. The kitchen settled again, still, but not empty. Not anymore. Then, somewhere deep in the house, far past the hallway, past the door he hadn't opened, something shifted, slow, deliberate, and stopped. Caleb didn't turn around. He stood in the foyer, keys still in his hand, listening to the silence stretch back into place like nothing had ever moved at all. That was the part that didn't sit right. Not the sound, not the cold hallway, not even the hollow space under the kitchen floor. It was how quickly the house returned to stillness, like it knew when to stop, like it knew when it was being listened to. Rex shifted beside him, not pacing, not restless, just unsettled. Caleb exhaled slowly and moved toward the staircase. He needed elevation, a better vantage point. Second floor meant more angles, more visibility, fewer blind spots behind him. He took the stairs one at a time, boots pressing into old wood that gave just enough under his weight. The railing felt solid, but worn smooth in places where hands had passed over it again and again years ago. Halfway up, he paused, listened. Nothing followed him. No footsteps below, no doors opening, just the low hum of the house itself, like something breathing too quietly to be heard directly. He kept moving. At the top, the landing opened into a wide hall that wrapped around the staircase. Doors lined both sides again, but these were different. Larger, spaced farther apart, each one leading into rooms that once meant something. Bedrooms, offices, or private spaces. Caleb stepped onto the landing and turned slowly, taking it all in, his eyes moving first, then his body, never the other way around. Rex came up behind him, slower this time, his nails clicking softly against the wood before he stopped at Caleb's side again. His ears twitched forward, then back, then forward again. Caleb noticed. Yeah, he murmured. Same. He moved down the hall to the right. First door, bedroom. He opened it. The air inside was stale, but warmer than downstairs. A large bed sat against the far wall, sheets pulled tight, untouched. A dresser stood opposite, drawers closed. A window looked out over the tree line, gray light spilling in across the floor. No disturbance, no movement. He closed the door. Second room, bathroom, clean, water worked. A mirror slightly fogged along the edges from age, not from use. He checked the cabinet under the sink. Empty. Closed it again. Third room. He stopped before opening it. Something about this one felt different. No reason, no visible difference. Just a pause in his body. Rex stood behind him, not growling this time, but not relaxed either. Caleb reached for the handle, turned it, opened. Another bedroom, larger. This one faced the front of the house. The window gave a clear view of the clearing and the road they'd come in on. The truck sat exactly where he'd left it. No tracks leading away. No sign of Earl. Caleb stepped inside, moving toward the window. The glass was cold under his fingertips. He scanned the tree line again. Nothing. No movement. No reflection. Just forest. Still. Too still. His gaze shifted slightly, tracking left. And for a fraction of a second, something moved. His body reacted before his mind did. He dropped low, fast, one knee hitting the floor, hand bracing against the wall, eyes snapping back to the window. Rex jumped forward, stance tight, head up. Caleb held still, breathing controlled, counting. 1, 2, 3, nothing. The trees stood exactly where they had been. No movement, no shadow out of place. Caleb stayed there a second longer, letting the adrenaline settle. Then slowly, carefully, he rose. Rex didn't take his eyes off the window. Caleb's jaw shifted. Probably nothing, he said, but he didn't believe it. He stepped back from the window and turned toward the door. And that's when it hit. A sound sharp, close behind him. A crack. No, not a crack. A pop. Instant. Loud. Too loud. Caleb dropped again without thinking. Shoulders tensing. Hand reaching. Not for a weapon. For Rex. Down. Rex hit the floor immediately. The room spun for half a second. Not physically, but in his head. Different walls. Different air. Different smell. Hot dust. Burning metal. The memory slammed into him without warning. IED. The road. The convoy. The flash. He blinked hard. The bedroom snapped back into place around him, silent. Still. No explosion. No smoke. Just the old house. Rex was already up again, pressing against his side. Body firm, steady, grounding. Caleb's breathing was heavier now. Controlled, but heavier. He stayed low for another second. Then two. Then slowly pushed himself back up. His eyes moved across the room again. The source. Find the source. Not there. Near the window. A loose piece of wood trim had fallen from the frame, hitting the floor. That was it. Just that. Caleb stared at it for a long moment, then let out a slow breath through his nose. Not that, he muttered. Rex's head tilted slightly. Caleb ran a hand over the back of his neck, grounding himself. Not here. The echo of the memory lingered longer than he wanted it to. The sound, the timing, the way his body had moved before he could stop it. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again. Focused, present, Rex nudged his hand. Caleb looked down at him. The dog's eyes were steady, calm. There. Caleb gave a small nod. Good. He stepped back into the hallway. The house hadn't changed. Same silence, same stillness, but now it felt closer, tighter, like the walls had shifted in just a little. He moved down the rest of the hall, checking the remaining rooms without incident. Everything clean, everything untouched, everything waiting. By the time he came back to the top of the stairs, the light outside had shifted. Darker now, evening settling in faster than it should have. Caleb paused at the landing, looked down toward the foyer. The hallway below leading to the east wing sat in shadow now, deeper than before. The temperature seemed to drop just looking at it. Rex followed his gaze. This time he didn't growl. He just stood there still, focused, like he was listening for something far below the surface. Caleb's grip tightened slightly. Not fear, not hesitation, just awareness. He turned away. Not tonight. He moved down the stairs, each step slow and measured. Behind him, the second floor faded back into shadow. Ahead, the first floor waited. And somewhere in the house, beneath the wood, beneath the walls, beneath everything that made it look like a place people once lived, something stayed quiet, not gone, not sleeping, just waiting. Caleb didn't turn the lights on. He left the house the way it was, dim, uneven, shadows stretching longer as the last of the daylight slipped through the windows. Light meant visibility, but it also meant exposure. He moved through the kitchen again, slower this time, his steps quieter, his eyes already mapping the room in low contrast. The hum of the refrigerator filled the space, steady and artificial, something he could measure. Rex didn't go to the center of the room immediately. He circled once, nose low, tracking, and then he stopped right where he had before, the same spot. No hesitation, no doubt. He looked up at Caleb, waiting. Caleb set the duffel bag down against the counter. His movements stayed controlled. No rush, no wasted motion. He crouched again, placing his palm flat against the floor where Rex stood. Cold. Still cold. Colder than the rest of the house. He tapped the wood lightly again. Hollow. He shifted 2 inches to the right. Tapped again. Solid. Back to center. Hollow. Caleb leaned back slightly, studying the pattern. Rex scratched once, then again, more insistent now. Not random, directed. Caleb reached into his bag and pulled out the multi-tool he carried. Habit, not intention. He ran the edge of it along the seam between two boards. There, a gap, small and almost invisible unless you were looking for it. He pressed the tip in and applied pressure. The board didn't lift immediately. Old wood resisted. Then, a faint give. Caleb shifted his grip, applying a bit more leverage. The board lifted half an inch. Enough. He set the tool aside and used both hands, fingers hooking under the edge, pulled. The wood came up with a low, reluctant creak, releasing dust that hadn't moved in years. Rex stepped back, not afraid, just giving space. Caleb set the board aside carefully. Underneath, darkness, a narrow cavity between the beams. Not deep, but not shallow either. Just enough space for something to be hidden. Caleb reached in. Slow. His fingers brushed against something solid. Paper. He pulled it out. A small bundle wrapped tight. He set it on the counter and unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a leather-bound notebook, worn, its edges softened with age. He opened it. Handwritten entries, neat, precise, dates marked along the top of each page. Medical notes, vitals, dosages. Caleb's eyes moved quickly across the first few entries. He didn't read everything. He didn't need to. He recognized the structure. Routine, long-term, not a journal, a log. Rex moved closer again, watching. Caleb flipped further. Pages filled. Consistent. Years' worth. He paused on one. A name wasn't written. Not clearly. Just initials repeated. Same pattern. Same entries, over and over. Caleb's jaw shifted. He closed the notebook halfway, then reached back into the cavity. There was more. He pulled out a stack of photographs, Polaroids, old, their edges curled slightly. He held the top one up. A man, mid, 40s, maybe standing in a small room, concrete walls, a bed behind him, books stacked in one corner. The man's posture was straight, eyes clear, alert. Caleb flipped to the next. Same man, older, slightly thinner. Same room. Another years later. Hair graying. Posture weaker. Another older still. Skin thinner. Eyes less focused. Caleb flipped faster now. Each image marked with a date in the corner. Years passing. The same man. The same room. Always the same room. Until the last one. The man lay in the bed, very thin, eyes half open, still alive. Caleb's thumb stilled on the edge of the photo. Rex let out a low sound. Caleb's eyes dropped to the man's face. Focus. Details. Always details. The shape of the jaw, of the scar along the cheek, the structure of the brow. He turned his head slightly, looked toward the doorway, then back to the photo. Then the memory clicked into place. Earl, not exact, not the same age, but the structure. The resemblance was subtle, but too strong to ignore. Caleb picked up another photo, looked again. The eyes brown, dark, not pale, not like Earl's. He exhaled slowly. Yeah. Rex shifted closer. Caleb set the photos down in a neat stack, then opened the notebook again. He flipped to a later entry. The handwriting had changed slightly. Still neat, but tighter, more controlled, like the person writing it had begun to rush or had less time. He scanned one line, then another. Medication adjustments, notes on behavior, mentions of resistance. Then a single entry stood out. Short, different. The handwriting pressed deeper into the page, as if the pen had been held harder. Transfer of responsibility begins next week. No name, no explanation, just that. Caleb stared at the line for a moment, then flipped forward. More entries, different tone now, shorter, less detail. Then another break. Subject secured. Condition stable. Caleb closed the notebook slowly. The house creaked faintly around him. Not loud. Just enough. Rex's head snapped toward the hallway. His body stiffened this time. He growled low. Sharp. Caleb's eyes followed immediately. The hallway beyond the kitchen sat in shadow again, deeper now. Night had fully settled outside. The darkness there felt heavier than the rest of the house. Caleb stood, picked up the notebook, The photos, set them back down again. Not yet. He needed to understand more, but not all at once. He reached back down and replaced the board over the opening, pressed it flat, sealed it for now. Rex didn't take his eyes off the hallway. The growl didn't stop. Caleb moved slowly toward him. One step, then another. The temperature dropped again as they neared the corridor. The same shift as before, but stronger now, more defined. Caleb stopped just short of the threshold. Listened. Nothing. Then a sound. Faint. Almost too soft to register. A drag. Slow, measured. From below. Not above. Not behind the walls. Below. Caleb's breathing steadied, his posture adjusted. Weight forward. Ready. Rex's growl deepened. Caleb didn't speak, didn't move, just listened. The sound came again, longer this time. Then it stopped. Silence rushed back in. Thick. The silence held. Caleb's grip tightened slightly. He glanced down at Rex. The dog's eyes were fixed on the same point, unblinking, focused, certain. Caleb looked back toward the darkness. Yeah, he said quietly. A pause. That's not nothing. The house didn't respond, didn't move, didn't breathe, but it felt different now. Less like an empty place, more like something that had been opened. And somewhere beneath them, something had just realized it wasn't alone anymore. Caleb didn't step into the hallway. Not yet. He let the silence stretch. Let whatever was below decide whether it wanted to move again. It didn't. Rex's growl tapered off slowly, fading into a low rumble that sat deep in his chest. Not gone, just contained. Caleb exhaled through his nose. All right, he murmured. He turned away from the corridor. Not retreating, repositioning. The kitchen light flickered once as he passed back through, then steadied. The hum of the refrigerator filled the space again. Grounding, mechanical, predictable. He needed that. He grabbed the notebook and the photos from the counter, sliding them into the inner pocket of his jacket. Then he moved to the front of the house. The foyer was darker now. The last light from outside had dropped behind the trees, leaving the windows black and reflective. The staircase loomed overhead, shadows pooling between the steps. Caleb crossed the room slowly. Every sound mattered now, every shift in the air. He reached the front door, listened. Nothing. He unlocked it anyway, opened it just enough to slip through. The cold night air hit him immediately. Clean. Sharp. Real. Different from the air inside. Rex followed him out without hesitation this time. They stepped onto the porch. Caleb closed the door behind them, leaving it unlatched. The clearing stretched out in front of him, silvered by moonlight. The truck sat where he'd left it, still and untouched. But something had changed. He felt it out here. The silence wasn't heavy, it was open. Caleb stepped down off the porch, boots hitting gravel with a crunch that carried farther than it should have. Rex moved ahead of him this time, not defensive, leading. Caleb followed. They crossed the clearing slowly, the house at their back now. Caleb didn't turn around. He didn't need to. He could feel it. The weight of it behind him, watching. They reached the edge of the trees, the line where the property ended and the forest began. Rex stopped, sniffed the ground, then moved left, following something. A path, faint, barely visible unless you knew what to look for. Caleb saw it. Pressed grass, old tire marks, footprints that didn't belong to him. Not fresh, but not gone either. He crouched, touched the ground. Dirt shifted slightly under his fingers. Recent enough. His eyes lifted, tracking the path east toward the deeper trees, toward where Earl had said the cottage was. Caleb stood. Rex looked back at him, waiting. Caleb nodded once. Let's go. They moved into the trees. The forest swallowed the moonlight almost immediately. Branches overhead, cutting it into thin, fractured lines that barely reached the ground. Caleb adjusted his pace. Slower. Quieter. Each step placed with intention. No snapping branches. No loose gravel. Just movement controlled. And Rex stayed a few feet ahead, nose low, tracking the path without hesitation. He didn't growl here, didn't hesitate. That told Caleb something. Whatever was wrong wasn't out here. The path curved slightly, winding through the trees before opening into a smaller clearing. A structure stood there. The cottage was one story, wood-sided, with warm yellow light glowing inside. Alive. Caleb stopped at the edge of the clearing. Rex halted beside him. The dog's body shifted again. Different posture now, alert, but not hostile. Caleb watched the cottage. The door opened. Earl stepped out. Same posture, same stillness. But here, under the light, he looked different. Not physically, exactly, just clearer. Caleb stepped forward. Didn't hide it. Didn't need to. Gravel crunched under his boots as he crossed into the open. Earl didn't move. Didn't react. Just watched him approach. "You settle in?" Earl asked. Same voice, same tone. Caleb stopped a few feet away. Close enough. Not too close. "Found some things," Caleb said. Earl's eyes didn't change. "Old house," he replied. "Plenty of that." Caleb reached into his jacket. Slow, deliberate. He pulled out one of the photographs, held it up, not offering it, just showing. The man in the photo stared back from decades ago, frozen in time. Earl's gaze dropped to it. 1 second. 2. 3. Then lifted back to Caleb. No surprise, no confusion, nothing. Caleb watched him closely. "You know who that is?" Caleb asked. Earl tilted his head slightly. "Should I?" Caleb didn't answer. He flipped to a later photo and held it up. Same man, older, weaker. Earl's eyes tracked it. Then returned to Caleb again. Still nothing. "You've been here how long?" Caleb asked. "Long enough." "That's not an answer. It's the one I've got." Caleb's jaw shifted. He held up the photo again. "This man's been in that house a long time too." Earl didn't respond, didn't blink. Caleb studied his face, the structure, the lines, then looked back at the photo, then back again. There it was. Subtle, but there. The same bone structure, the same angle of the jaw, the same shape in the brow, but the eyes wrong. Different. Caleb lowered the photo slightly. "Took a look at the basement yet?" Earl asked. The question came too smooth, too timed. But Caleb's eyes narrowed just slightly. "No," he said. Earl nodded once. "Good." A pause. "You keep it that way." Caleb didn't respond. He watched Earl's face, waited. Nothing came. No explanation. No warning beyond that. Just silence. Caleb slid the photo back into his jacket, then said quietly, "That man in the house. A beat. He's not you." The air shifted. Not visibly, not audibly, but something in the space between them tightened. Earl's expression didn't change. But his eyes, they stilled even more than before. Caleb held his gaze. Didn't move. Didn't blink. Rex stood beside him, body rigid now, a low sound building again in his chest. Earl's lips parted slightly, then closed again. He looked past Caleb for a second, toward the trees, then back. "You don't want to go digging into things that don't concern you," he said. Still calm. Still flat. But different now. Less like a statement. More like a line he'd used before. Caleb didn't move. "Everything in that house concerns me," he said. Another pause. Longer this time. Then Earl stepped back. Just one step, not retreating. Creating distance. "For your sake," he said quietly. "You stay out of that basement." Caleb watched him, measured the space, the angle, the posture, then nodded once. Not agreement, acknowledgement. He turned. Rex turned with him. They walked back toward the trees. Didn't rush, didn't look back. But Caleb could feel it. Earl's eyes on him all the way to the edge of the clearing. All the way until the forest swallowed the light again. And as they stepped back into the darkness, Rex's growl returned. Low, certain. Caleb didn't speak, didn't slow, just kept moving. Because now he wasn't wondering anymore. He knew the man in that house and the man in that cottage were not the same, and one of them didn't belong where he was. Caleb didn't say it out loud. He didn't need to. The conclusion had already settled into place somewhere deeper than words, built from pieces that didn't fit any other way. Rex moved ahead of him through the trees, faster now, not stopping to check the ground as often. He knew the direction back. He knew the path. Caleb followed, his pace steady but sharper than before. Less exploration, more purpose. The house came back into view through the branches, its shape darker now against the night sky, but windows reflecting nothing but black. No lights, no movement, just waiting. They crossed the clearing without slowing. Caleb stepped onto the porch and pushed the door open in one motion. The air inside hit him again. Thick, still wrong. But now he knew it wasn't just the house. Rex didn't hesitate this time. He went straight in. No pause at the threshold. No reluctance. Straight toward the hallway. Caleb followed. The temperature dropped faster now as they entered the corridor. Like the house had stopped pretending. The shadows felt heavier. Closer. The seam in the wall waited at the far end. The hidden door, the one Earl had told him to ignore. Rex reached first, stopped, turned his head slightly toward Caleb, then back to the door. No growl, no bark, just stillness. Caleb slowed as he approached, each step measured, his breathing steady, his eyes locked on the door. The sound came again, faint, dragging from below, closer now, clearer, not random, not mechanical, intentional. Caleb stopped a few feet from the door. He didn't reach for the handle immediately. He listened, counted the silence between sounds, measured it. Pattern, pause, drag, pause. Something alive, something moving. Slowly, Rex shifted his weight, closer to the door, closer than before. Caleb reached out, his hand closed around the handle. Cold. Colder than it should have been. He didn't turn it yet. He leaned in slightly, closer. And then a sound, different this time. Not a drag, not movement, a breath, wet, uneven. Caleb's grip tightened. Rex let out a sharp, low sound. Caleb pulled the handle. The door opened inward. A narrow stairway dropped into darkness. Wood steps, worn and steep. The air that came up from below was colder, damp, and carried that same metallic edge he'd noticed before, but stronger now. Rex didn't go down. He stopped at the top, waiting. Caleb reached into his jacket and pulled out the flashlight, clicked it on. The beam cut through the dark, revealing the first few steps, then the next, then the bottom, concrete floor, and beyond that, a shape. Not clear, just enough to see that the space opened up into something larger. Caleb stepped down. One step, pause, listen, nothing. Second step, the wood creaked under his weight. The sound echoed slightly in the confined space. Third step, Rex followed now, close, closer than usual, half a step behind. Caleb moved slowly and keeping the beam steady, sweeping the edges of the stairwell, checking corners, angles, places. Something could be waiting. Nothing moved. Nothing rushed him. The silence held. He reached the bottom. The beam widened. The space opened. Concrete walls. Clean. Too clean. Not like the rest of the house. This had been built. Added. A door stood at the far end. Steel. Thick. Industrial. Completely out of place. A keypad mounted beside it. Red light glowing. Caleb's eyes narrowed. That didn't belong here. Not in a place like this. Rex stepped forward, stopped halfway across the room, his body lowered, tense, focused. Caleb moved past him slowly, each step controlled. The beam of the flashlight steadied on the door. The red light didn't flicker, didn't change, just watched. Then from behind the steel, a sound, clear this time. A cough, rough, human. Caleb froze. Rex's ears snapped forward. Another sound, a voice, weak, barely there. Hello. The word scraped out like it hadn't been used in a long time. Caleb's breath slowed. His body shifted. Not retreating. Not advancing. Assessing. Yeah, he said, voice low, controlled. I hear you. Silence. Then, water. The voice cracked on the word, dry, fading. Caleb stepped closer to the door. The beam illuminated the keypad. Numbers worn slightly from use, not random, used recently. Caleb's eyes moved over it, then back to the door. What's your name? he asked. A long pause. Then, Frank. Rex let out a sharp, quiet sound. Caleb's jaw tightened. Frank, the caretaker. The name Earl had given. Caleb glanced back at Rex. The dog was staring at the door like it was alive. Then Caleb looked back at the steel. Frank, he repeated. Yeah. Caleb's grip tightened slightly on the flashlight. He took one slow step back. Just one. Enough to see the whole door again. Enough to think. Earl, the cottage, the eyes, the photos, the man in the images, the wrong color, the wrong person, and now, a voice behind a locked door using the same name. Caleb exhaled slowly. Everything lined up. Too clean, too exact. He looked at the keypad again. The red light blinked once, then steadied. Rex shifted closer, standing beside him now, not behind. Ready, Caleb spoke quietly. You've been down here long, Frank? Silence. Then, don't know. The words dragged. Time stopped. Caleb's eyes didn't leave the door. Who put you there? Another pause. Longer this time. Then the word came. Caleb felt it before the name landed the shift. The confirmation. Earl. Rex growled. Low, certain. Caleb's jaw set. He didn't reach for the keypad. Not yet. He stepped back slowly, measured. Every instinct pulling him forward. Every calculation holding him in place. Because now this wasn't just a house, wasn't just a condition, wasn't just money. This was something else. Something buried, hidden, protected, and guarded. Caleb looked at the steel door one more time, then turned. Come on, he said quietly. Rex didn't move at first, then followed. They climbed the stairs, back into the hallway, back into the house. But nothing felt the same now because the silence wasn't empty anymore. Whatever had been hidden here was no longer hidden. Caleb didn't go back to the kitchen. He didn't sit down. Didn't turn on more lights. He stood in the hallway just outside the basement door. One hand resting against the wall, the other hanging loose at his side, his breathing steady but deeper than before. Rex stood beside him, not moving, not pacing, waiting. The house had changed, not physically, but in the way it held sound. Before the silence had felt like something empty. Now it felt like something listening back. Caleb turned slowly, his eyes tracing the hallway again, every detail, every line. He was already running it through his head. Angles, movement, timing, fallback routes, the way he used to when a situation turned from unknown to active. Because now this wasn't a guess. There was a man behind that door, alive, and there was another man walking free outside, using the same name. Caleb exhaled through his nose. His eyes moved to the basement door, closed now, quiet like it had never been opened. But the memory of that voice stayed sharp. Water. Rex shifted his weight slightly. A soft sound escaped him. Low, uncertain. Caleb looked down. Yeah, he said quietly. I know. He stepped away from the door, moved back toward the foyer. He needed space, distance, a clearer head. The front room felt larger now, but not safer, just more open. He crossed to the window and looked out. The clearing sat under the moonlight, pale and still. The truck remained untouched. The tree line stood dark beyond it. No movement, no sign of Earl. But Caleb didn't trust that. Not anymore. He turned back toward the house. His eyes tracked the staircase, the hallway, the kitchen. Each path leading to something he hadn't fully seen yet. Each one holding a piece of it. He walked back into the kitchen. Rex followed. The floorboards felt different now under his boots. Not just wood, a surface, a cover. He stopped at the center of the room, right where Rex had found the hollow space earlier. The board he'd replaced sat flush with the others. No sign it had been disturbed. But Caleb knew. He crouched again, ran his hand across it. Still cold. Still hollow. He tapped it once. The sound came back dull. Rex watched him closely. Caleb sat back slightly on his heels, thinking. The notebook, the photos, the entries, the name, Frank, the same name Earl had used. The same name now coming from behind a locked steel door. Two identities, one real, one not. Caleb stood. His gaze moved slowly toward the hallway again. The basement door, the rule, under no circumstances. He could hear it in his head again. Clear, deliberate. If he opened that door, he lost everything. The house, the land, whatever money came with it, all gone. Caleb's jaw tightened slightly. He didn't care about the house. He didn't care about the land. But money meant something. It meant paying off what was left behind. It meant not going back to the kind of work that barely kept him moving. It meant he stopped the thought, didn't let it finish. Rex moved closer, pressed lightly against his leg, grounding. Caleb looked down at him. The dog's eyes were steady, clear, present. No hesitation, no confusion, just certainty. Caleb let out a slow breath, then turned, walked back toward the hallway. This time, he didn't stop at the threshold. He moved straight to the basement door. Rex was already there, waiting. Caleb stood in front of it. Close enough to feel the cold coming off the wood again. He reached out. His hand hovered over the handle. Didn't touch it. Not yet. He listened. Nothing. Then a faint sound from below. A breath, uneven, weak. Still there. Caleb closed his eyes for a second. Just one. Then opened them again, focused, clear. He stepped back. One step, then another. Rex looked up at him. Caleb shook his head slightly. Not like this, he said. Rex's ears flicked. Caleb turned away, moved back into the foyer. He needed more. More information, more control. Opening that door blind wasn't an option. Not yet. He grabbed his jacket from the chair near the wall. Checked the pocket, the notebook, the photos. Still there. He moved to the front door. Opened it. The cold air hit him again. Cleaner, sharper, real. Rex followed. They stepped out onto the porch. The night hadn't changed, but Caleb had. He walked down into the clearing, stopped halfway, turned, looked back at the house. The window stared back, dark, empty, watching. Caleb's eyes narrowed slightly. All right, he said under his breath. He turned toward the tree line, toward the path, toward the cottage. Rex moved ahead immediately, no hesitation. Caleb followed his pace faster now, more direct, less cautious, because now he wasn't just exploring. He was moving toward something, toward the other half of it. The part that walked, the part that talked, the part that had told him to stay away. The trees swallowed them again. Branches overhead cutting the light. The path stretched out in front of them, familiar now. Rex tracked it easily. Caleb kept his eyes up, scanning, listening. Nothing moved, nothing followed, but the feeling didn't leave. They reached the clearing again. The cottage stood there, lights still on, unchanged. Earl stepped out before Caleb reached the edge. Same as before, same posture, same stillness. But now Caleb saw it. The difference. Subtle, but there. The way Earl held himself. Too controlled, too measured. Like every movement had been practiced, not lived. Caleb didn't slow. He stepped into the open. Rex beside him. Earl watched. This time he didn't speak first. Caleb stopped a few feet away. Close enough. Not too close. You've got someone in that house, Caleb said. No build-up, no hesitation, just the truth. Earl's eyes didn't change. Do I? Caleb didn't blink. Behind a steel door. A pause. Longer this time. Then you went down there, Earl said. Not a question. A statement. Caleb held his gaze. Yeah. Silence stretched between them. The air shifted tighter now, more defined. Rex's growl returned. Low, certain. Earl's eyes flicked to him, then back. You shouldn't have done that, he said. Same tone, same calm, but something underneath it was different now, less controlled. Caleb took one step closer. You're not him, he said. Another pause. Earl didn't respond, didn't deny it, didn't confirm it, just watched. And Caleb reached into his jacket again, pulled out the photo, held it up. This is him. Earl's eyes dropped to it. 1 second. 2. 3. Then lifted. And for the first time, something cracked. Not much, just a flicker. Gone almost immediately. But Caleb saw it. That was enough. He lowered the photo slightly. "Who are you?" he asked. The question hung there, heavy, waiting. Earl didn't answer, not right away. He took a slow breath, then said quietly, "You should leave." Caleb didn't move. Not without him. Another pause. Longer now. Then Earl stepped back. Just one step. The same distance as before, but this time it felt like space being made for something else. "Walk away," Earl said. "Take the money." Caleb's jaw tightened. "I open that door, I lose it." Earl nodded once. "Yes, a beat. That's the point." Caleb's eyes narrowed. The words settled in. Not a warning, not advice, a design, a trap. Caleb looked at him for a long moment, then nodded once. Not agreement, understanding. He turned. Rex turned with him. They walked back toward the trees. Didn't rush. Didn't look back. But Caleb could feel it. Earl watching, waiting, calculating. And as they stepped back into the darkness, Caleb spoke quietly. "We go back." Rex didn't respond. He didn't need to, because now there wasn't a choice anymore. There was only the door and the price behind it. Caleb didn't slow as he crossed the clearing. Didn't look back at the trees. Didn't check the shadows because the equation had changed. This wasn't about unknowns anymore. This was a decision. Rex ran ahead this time, not cautious, not hesitant, but direct. The house loomed closer with every step, its dark windows reflecting nothing back. Caleb hit the porch in 3 strides and pushed the door open hard enough for it to strike the wall behind it. The sound echoed through the house. No more quiet entry, no more waiting. Rex was already inside, moving fast toward the hallway. Caleb followed. His boots struck the floor with weight now. Intentional, grounded, controlled, but no longer careful. The hallway swallowed them again. Cold, still waiting. The basement door stood exactly where he'd left it. Closed, unchanged, but everything behind it wasn't. Caleb stepped up to it without hesitation. No pause this time. No listening, no measuring. He reached for the handle. Rex moved in tight beside him, closer than ever. Caleb glanced down once. The dog's body was rigid. Ready. Caleb nodded. "Stay with me." Then he pulled the door open. The stairway dropped into darkness again. The air that rose up felt heavier now, colder, thicker, carrying something that didn't belong in open air. Caleb didn't stop. He descended. 1 step. 2. 3. Faster now. The beam of the flashlight cut through the dark, bouncing slightly with his movement. Rex followed tight at his side. The bottom of the stairs came up fast. Concrete. Steel. The door. The keypad still glowing red. Waiting. Caleb stepped into the room. The sound came immediately. A breath stronger than before. Closer. Alive. Rex moved ahead. Stopped halfway. Body low, eyes locked. Caleb walked straight to the keypad. Didn't hesitate. Didn't second guess. His hand hovered over the numbers. For a fraction of a second, the thought hit him. Everything gone, just like that. Your debt cleared, future secured, or nothing. He didn't let it settle, didn't let it root because there was another sound behind the door. A weak shift, a breath struggling to stay steady. Caleb pressed the first number. The keypad beeped, sharp, loud in the silence. Rex flinched slightly. Caleb didn't stop. Second number. Beep. Third. Fourth. The red light flickered, paused, then turned green. A low mechanical sound rolled through the door as the locks disengaged. Heavy, final. The steel shifted, opened inward. The air that came out hit him hard, cold, stale, carrying the weight of something closed for too long. Caleb stepped forward, crossed the threshold. The flashlight beam swept the room and stopped. A bed, metal frame, thin mattress, machines old, dusty, silent. And on the bed, a man too thin, too still, barely breathing. Caleb moved closer, slow now, controlled. The man's eyes opened slightly, clouded, searching, trying to focus. Caleb crouched beside him. "Hey," he said quietly. The man's lips moved. No sound came out at first. Then water. Caleb reached back, grabbed the canteen from his jacket, unscrewed it, and brought it carefully to the man's mouth. "Slow," he said. A small sip, then another. The man coughed, weak but alive. Caleb lowered the canteen. The man's eyes found him. Focused, barely. "You real?" Caleb nodded once. "Yeah." A long breath left the man's chest like something he'd been holding finally let go. He said no one would come. Caleb's eyes hardened slightly. He was wrong. The man blinked slowly. "What year?" Caleb hesitated for half a second. 2026. The man's face didn't change, didn't react, just stilled. As if the number didn't fit, as if it couldn't. "No," he whispered. Caleb didn't respond. He didn't need to. The truth was already there. Heavy, settled. Rex moved closer, slow, careful. The dog lowered his head slightly. The man's eyes shifted to him. "Dog," he murmured. Rex didn't move closer, didn't touch, just stayed there. Present. The man's hand twitched slightly on the blanket, barely a movement. "Frank," he said. Caleb's jaw tightened. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I know." A sound came from the stairs. Soft, measured, not rushed, not surprised, expected. Caleb's head turned. Rex spun immediately, growl rising. The light caught the figure at the top of the stairs. Earl standing still, watching. But something had changed. The posture, the way he held himself. The stillness was gone, replaced by something else. Straighter, sharper, real. He stepped down slowly, each step deliberate, controlled. The same way Caleb moved. Not a caretaker anymore. Not a man maintaining something. A man owning it. Rex's growl deepened. Earl didn't look at the dog. His eyes stayed on Caleb. "You opened it," he said. No surprise, no anger, just confirmation. Caleb stood, positioned himself slightly between the bed and the stairs. Not aggressive, protective. "Yeah," he said. Earl nodded once, then stepped off the last stair into the room. The air shifted again, tighter, more defined. Rex moved forward, blocking. Earl's eyes flicked to him, then back. "You just gave up everything," Earl said. Caleb didn't respond, didn't need to. Earl took another step, then another, stopping a few feet away. Close enough, not too close. His eyes moved briefly to the man on the bed, then back to Caleb. "You should have walked away," he said. Caleb's voice stayed even. "Not my style." A faint smile touched Earl's mouth, gone as quickly as it came. "No," he said quietly. "I suppose not." He shifted his weight slightly, and for the first time, Caleb saw it. The truth, not in words, not in explanation, in presence, in control, in the way the man stood. This wasn't a caretaker. This wasn't someone maintaining a secret. This was the one who built it, who owned it, who had lived inside it long enough to become part of it. Rex stepped forward. Just one step, teeth bared now. Not warning anymore. Ready. Earl's eyes finally dropped to him, and this time, they changed. Not fear, not anger, recognition. Then he looked back at Caleb and spoke. "Then I guess we're done pretending." The words settled into the room like something final. But Caleb didn't move. Didn't answer. He adjusted his stance instead. One foot shifting slightly, shoulders angling just enough to keep both the man and the stairwell in his field of view. Rex stepped forward. Not barking, not lunging, just closing the distance, his body low. Teeth visible now, a line drawn. The man, no longer Earl, not really, watched the dog for a second, then looked back at Caleb. His posture had changed completely. Gone was the slight stoop. Gone was the slow, measured caretaker's pace. Now he stood tall, balanced, comfortable, like he had just taken off a mask he'd been wearing too long. "You figured it out faster than most would have," he said. His voice had shifted too. Cleaner, sharper, less rough around the edges. Educated, controlled. Caleb didn't respond. The man tilted his head slightly. "Doesn't matter," he added. A beat. "You still made the same mistake." Caleb's eyes stayed locked on him. "Which one's that?" The man's gaze flicked briefly to the open vault behind Caleb. "To care." Rex growled. Low. Deep. The sound filled the room. The man's eyes dropped to him again, then back. "You could have walked away," he said. "You had everything lined up. 30 days, clean transfer, no questions asked." He took a slow step forward. Rex reacted instantly, stepping in, blocking. The man stopped, not because he was afraid, because he was calculating. "You think that door was there to keep people out?" he continued. Caleb didn't answer. "Wrong," the man said softly. "It was there to keep people like you in check." Caleb's jaw shifted slightly. Behind him, the man on the bed shifted weakly, a faint sound escaping his throat. The man in front of Caleb didn't look back, didn't acknowledge it. "People get curious," he said. "They always do." Another step closer now. "But curiosity has a cost." Caleb's voice stayed level. "I'm still here." A faint smile touched the man's face. Not for long. His right hand moved, not fast, not sudden, but deliberate. He reached down beside the wall and picked up a length of rusted metal, a broken piece of pipe, heavy, solid. Rex reacted instantly. A sharp bark, then forward. The man didn't swing, didn't rush. He just held it loosely at his side, comfortable with it, like it belonged there, like he'd done this before. Caleb shifted his weight, adjusted his angle, distance, 3 steps between them, concrete floor, limited space, one exit behind the man, while Rex circled slightly, trying to flank. The man tracked him without moving his head, only his eyes. "You trained him well," he said. Caleb didn't respond. The man's grip on the pipe tightened slightly. "You were military," he added. Not a question, a statement. Caleb's voice stayed flat. "Yeah." The man nodded once. "I can see that." A pause then, "Which means you understand something." Caleb waited. The man's eyes sharpened slightly, timing. And then he moved fast. Faster than anything before. The pipe came up in a tight arc, not wild, not reckless, precise, aimed. Rex launched forward, intercepting. The pipe connected with the dog's shoulder instead of Caleb's side, a dull impact. Rex let out a sharp sound, more surprise than pain, and slid across the concrete. Caleb moved at the same time, not reacting, already moving. He stepped in, closed the distance. His hand caught the man's wrist before the second swing could come. Turn, pressure, redirect. The pipe clanged against the floor. The man twisted, tried to pull free, strong, controlled, but Caleb had leverage. Position. Training. He drove forward, shoulder into the man's chest, forced him back a step. Then another. The man's foot slipped slightly on the smooth floor. Just enough. Caleb shifted, used it, pivot. The man hit the wall hard. The air left him in a sharp breath. Caleb didn't let up. He locked the arm, pinned it. The man struggled, tried to twist out, but Caleb held tight. Efficient. Rex scrambled back up, favoring one leg, but moving. Still in it. He came in from the side, low, fast running bark that filled the space. The man froze for half a second. Just enough. Caleb tightened the hold. Drove him down, knee to the ground. Control. The man stopped resisting, not because he couldn't, because he chose not to. His breathing slowed, even measured. "You think this ends here?" he said quietly. Caleb didn't answer, didn't loosen his grip. From above, a sound faint at first, then clearer. Engines, multiple, moving fast. The man's eyes shifted slightly, listening. Caleb didn't react. Didn't look. He already knew. The man let out a small breath, almost a laugh. "You planned ahead." Caleb's voice stayed low. Always. The sound grew louder. Gravel crunching, doors opening, voices distant, then closer. Boots on wood. The man beneath Caleb stilled completely. Not fighting anymore. No, not trying to escape. Just done. Rex stood beside them, breathing heavy. One front leg held slightly off the ground, but steady. Still guarding, the first beam of light cut down the stairwell. A voice followed. "Sheriff's Department. Anyone down there? Stay where you are." Caleb didn't move. Didn't release. "Down here," he called. The footsteps came fast, controlled, professional. 2 deputies reached the bottom first. weapons low but ready, eyes scanning, taking in the scene in one sweep. Caleb, the man pinned to the ground, the open vault, the figure on the bed, the dog, everything. "Step back, sir," one of them said. Caleb held for one more second, then released. Slow, controlled. He stood, moved back, hands visible. The deputies moved in fast, efficient. The man didn't resist, didn't speak, didn't look at Caleb again. They brought him to his feet, secured his hands. The metal clicked into place. Final. Rex let out a low sound. Not aggressive, just watching. Another set of footsteps. Heavier, slower. An older voice. "Easy now," the sheriff said as he came into view. His eyes moved across the room, stopped on Caleb. "You the one who called it in?" Caleb nodded once. "Yeah." The sheriff looked at the man being held, then at the vault, then at the bed. His expression hardened. "We'll take it from here." Caleb nodded again. Didn't argue. Didn't need to. He stepped back further this time, creating space, letting it go. Rex stayed beside him, pressed close, still breathing hard, still holding. Caleb reached down, rested a hand on his neck. "Good boy," he said quietly. The dog didn't respond and didn't need to because it was over. Or at least the part that needed them to fight was. The rest came quieter, not all at once, but in pieces. Caleb stood at the base of the stairs while the deputies moved through the room, their voices low, controlled, efficient. Radios crackled softly. Flashlights cut through corners Caleb had already cleared in his head hours ago. They didn't rush. They didn't hesitate. They moved like people who had seen enough to recognize what mattered. One of them knelt beside the bed. "Sir, can you hear me?" The man, Frank, blinked slowly. Barely. But it was enough. "Yeah," he whispered. The deputy nodded. "All right, we've got you." Another voice came from behind. "EMS is on the way." Caleb exhaled, didn't realize he'd been holding it. He stepped back another pace, then another, until his shoulders touched the cold concrete wall behind him. Rex stayed close, pressed against his leg. His breathing had slowed now, but not fully steady. Caleb looked down. The dog's front leg trembled slightly when he shifted weight. Caleb crouched, ran a hand gently along the shoulder. Rex flinched once, then held still. "Yeah," Caleb murmured. "You took that one." Rex's ears flicked, still alert, still tracking even now. Caleb let his hand rest there for a moment longer, then stood again. The man, the one who had called himself Earl, was being led up the stairs. He didn't fight, didn't speak, didn't look back, just walked like someone who had already run out of moves. The sheriff lingered a moment longer. His eyes moved from Caleb to Rex to the open vault, then back. "You did good," he said. "Simple. No extra weight added to it. Just fact." Caleb nodded once, didn't answer. Didn't need to. The sheriff gave a short nod in return, then turned, followed his people up the stairs. The sound of boots faded slowly. The room grew quieter until it was just Caleb, Rex, and the man on the bed. Caleb stepped forward again, slower now, different. The urgency had gone, replaced by something else. He stopped beside the bed. Frank's eyes shifted toward him, more present now, still weak, but aware. "You stayed," Frank said. Caleb didn't answer right away. Then, "Yeah." A faint breath left the man's chest. "I thought no one would." Caleb glanced at the steel door. Still open. Still breathing cold air into the room. "You weren't supposed to be down here," he said. Frank's lips twitched slightly at something that might have been a smile. "Neither were you." Caleb almost smiled. Didn't quite. Instead, he reached down, adjusted the blanket slightly, small, practical, then stepped back. They didn't say anything else. Didn't need to because some things didn't need words. The paramedics arrived a few minutes later. They moved carefully, checked vitals, lifted Frank onto a stretcher with slow, practiced hands. One of them glanced at Caleb. "Family?" Caleb shook his head. "No." A pause. Then, "Just here." The paramedic nodded like that was enough because sometimes it was. They carried Frank out up the stairs into the night. The house shifted again as they left. Not lighter, not brighter, just quieter. Caleb followed them up step by step. The wooden stairs creaked under his weight. Then the hallway opened up around him again. The kitchen, the foyer, the front door, everything exactly where it had been, but not the same. He stepped outside. The cold air hit him again, but this time it didn't feel sharp. It felt clean. The flashing lights cut through the clearing, red, blue, moving across the trees. The truck sat where he'd left it, still waiting. Caleb walked down the porch steps slowly. Rex stayed beside him, closer now than before. They stopped halfway across the clearing, watched as the ambulance doors closed, watched as the vehicle pulled away, lights fading down the narrow road until they disappeared. The sheriff approached once more. Paperwork, questions, details. Caleb answered what needed answering, nothing more. He didn't add, didn't explain, just facts. The sheriff nodded or wrote things down. Then finally, "That place is going to be tied up for a while," he said. Caleb looked back at the house. Dark now, still, I figured. A pause. "You got somewhere to go?" Caleb glanced at the truck, then down at Rex, then back at the road. "Yeah," he said. The sheriff studied him for a second, then nodded. "Take care of that dog." Caleb looked down, ran a hand along Rex's neck again. "Always do." The sheriff gave one last nod, then turned, walked back toward the others. The lights began to fade one by one until the clearing was quiet again. Just the trees, the wind, and the house. Caleb stood there for a long moment. Didn't move, didn't think, just stood. Then he turned, walked to the truck, opened the passenger door. Rex jumped in slower than usual, favoring the leg, but steady. Caleb circled around, got in, started the engine. It turned over on the second try, same as always. He let it idle for a moment, hands resting on the wheel, eyes forward. Then he reached into the center console, pulled out the letter, the one that had started it, folded, creased, still there. He looked at it for a second, then set it back down, didn't need it anymore. He shifted the truck into gear, drove. The gravel crunched under the tires. The house stayed in the rear view mirror, getting smaller, then gone. The road stretched ahead, dark, quiet, open. Rex lay down on the seat, head resting near Caleb's leg, breathing steady. Caleb drove, didn't turn on the radio, didn't fear the silence, because for the first time in a long time, the silence didn't feel like something waiting to break. It felt like something that had already been settled, and for now, that was enough. But I'm curious, if you were standing there between the door and everything you could lose, would you open it or walk away? Just drop a 1 if you would open the door, or a 0 if you'd leave it closed. I read every single comment. And if this story stayed with you, go ahead and hit subscribe, because the next one might be even harder to walk away.